It's Escape from Chiraq. That's right. In super short order, I'm going to be on my way out and relocating. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, we've got situations in Chicago that are multifaceted and are detrimental to anyone that is a resident or a homeowner. There have been over 3,000 shots so far this year, on pace again to break a record. And as far as bodies lined up for homicides, over 500. So right there is one thing. A lot of the violence has gone to the north side of Chicago and the more affluent neighborhoods. So the carjackings, the holdups, the shootings, the home break-ins and robberies of businesses are becoming more prevalent in other areas because the risk takers are taking that risk because the potential score is very high. One of the common things that's happening over here lately is that a lot of carjackings have happened and they've gone to chop shops and whatnot and been stripped down, and there's a great deal of money in that, especially for higher end vehicles. And so you can imagine that if a couple of carjackers are able to do that and get a score, that can fund their operation for quite a while. Yes, the gangs are prevalent, but also there are some independent operators that are doing that and doing it quite frequently. If you read the news, you'll see that. Another thing, too, every shooting victim in Chicago, there's an average of $55,000 in initial treatment. A lot of that money, a lot of times, is not coming from the pockets of the victims, being that a lot of these shootings are happening in lower income neighborhoods. So it's the taxpayers fitting the bill on a lot of these shootings. This is something, of course, that old Bummer didn't address when he was president. I mean, being the fact that he's from Chicago and has a house in Chicago and went to college in Chicago, he pretty much ignored the problems, the deep social problems in the South Side especially. And in fact, I could rant on this for a long time, but about the only thing that he's really done for the South Side of Chicago is paid lip service and talked about building a presidential library and golf course on the South Side, which is absurd considering the deep social problems that need to be addressed. I don't think that those things are going to really help anyone succeed. Financial decline, of course, the tax situation is incredulous. You know, Mayor Richard Daley, going back even to early in his administration, there was a tax issue that's gotten worse and worse and worse. So tax revenue is not meeting the liabilities that are on the books. And in fact, what Rahm Emanuel has done lately is he's borrowed from the future to pay the liabilities of today. And of course, this is convenient for him, of course, and because he'll be out of office by the time that these bills come due. And so borrowing to pay the city bills is insanity, especially with taxes as high as they are here. Like I've said before, an average home in inner city Chicago, the property taxes are going to be anywhere between $6,000 and $8,000 a year. Now, that is expensive for a starter home, and only places like New Jersey and places in California can really compete with that type of tax situation for properties. You'd be out of your mind to actually own a single-family home in inner city Chicago, especially if it's a big lot. So there's that situation, which really is a negative and hurts me. There's a lot of controversy over the police and a lot of controversy over pensions and a lot of controversy over education and how to fund it and how to fund the liabilities of the education pension system for the teachers union. Fights, bickering, going back and forth. In fact, Rahm Emanuel has gone to Springfield, the state to actually try and get these wiped off the books, but twice he's been struck down from the state Supreme Court, as he probably should, because you look at this number here. By 2021, the Chicago Police Pension Fund will have less than $150 million in assets to cover $928 million in annual payments. What's interesting is that a lot of these pension drawers that are retired are not even living in the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois. They're in Arizona, they're in Florida, they're in other retirement places throughout the United States and Latin America, and they're drawing on their pensions, and they're not putting that money back into the local economy as they had planned when they crunched the numbers. So that money's being drawn out of a system, not being recirculated within Main Street, and therefore it's really a double-edged sword. The education system, of course, in trouble. The pension shortfalls cost an estimated of $70,000 per day just for the teacher's pension service on interest. That's just the interest. And think about how much deeper that's going to get in the coming years. Lately, of course, Rahm Emanuel has been kowtowing and catering towards big corporations like Amazon, trying to get the headquarters relocated to downtown Chicago, and even going so far as to allowing Amazon to take their workers' federal taxes and keeping them. Imagine that. You go to work for Amazon, they tax you a federal tax, and they keep the money. Now, taxation without representation is one thing, but taxation by the same company that is hiring you is something out of a George Orwell novel. It's really bizarre, I would say, that you would bend over backwards to allow a company like Amazon to come in and rewrite the way that taxes are collected. Personal income tax. So there's that. Of course, we know that Obama, I had mentioned that, hadn't really addressed the problem at all. Completely out of touch with the black community. Everybody knows that. In fact, that Obama is he's really a white guy. He's not really a black guy. Born to white and black parents and then raised by a white family. And not really addressing any of the inner city problems that a lot of the African American community has been talking about for years. I know that for a fact, just by living here and talking to people, that it's really an atrocious joke. So here we go, $200 trillion in such commitments that states will be drawing from the federal government on as far as their unfunded liabilities. So there's something to be said about local sovereignty for your county, your city, your state governments. If they're going to be saddled with trillions of dollars in commitments over these coming decades and letting the federal government dictate to them how and what they need to do to get those funds to dig themselves out of debt, and meanwhile also taxing people beyond all reasonable means, what does that spell for places like inner city Chicago? It basically spells that these places are going to be a nightmare to live in. A nightmare.